Good morning, welcome back to 9 Little Aussies. My name is Chrissy and I'm in my kitchen today. I'm glad to have you with me. It is a kind of a dreary, drizzly, beautiful day outside, but definitely the kind of day to be inside baking, which is what I plan to do. So on the agenda today, I have a cake to make because I have our friend's birthday party this afternoon and she is gluten-free, so I'm going to make her one of my favorite gluten-free cakes. So I used to make this cake every year for my birthday because for many years I was gluten-free and I still have to really keep it to a minimum. But this book, Quirky Cooking, which I have had for a very long time, has this coffee espresso cake and it is one of my favorites. It is so delicious. So I'm going to make that for her today. And tomorrow at church we are having a Thanksgiving dinner, so I'm going to make a pumpkin pie for that, which is also part of my little pumpkin experiment I have been working on, which is just trying lots of different kinds of pumpkins and figuring out which ones we like and which ones are closest to what we had back home in Australia and are good for baking, and some of them are better for soups and things. So I'm just doing a little pumpkin experiment as we go through the year, or this season especially, which it is fun that in America pumpkins seem to be very seasonal, whereas back where I come from in Australia, pumpkins are just kind of like potatoes. They're there year round and everyone eats them year round. So here it seems to be, this is the season for the pumpkins. So I am trying all different kinds of pumpkins. I have one that I baked a few days ago, actually a week or so ago, and it had a really nice flavor, and I pureed some of it and put it in the fridge so that I can make different things with it. I've got another one today that I'm going to bake, and we'll try that one. And I'm just gradually working my way through them as we go. Okay, this is our cake that we're making. Now the recipe is laid out and for a Thermomix, which I used to have a Thermomix in Australia. Loved my Thermomix, but I didn't bring it with me. But it's pretty easy to convert a recipe from a Thermomix, which is, for those of you who don't know, is basically like a really nice fancy food processor, but it also cooks and does a whole heap of things. But you can pretty easily convert this, and I'm just going to use my food processor for the times where I need it. I'll use the stand mixer a little bit. But the first thing I've done is just grease this cake pan. Now, usually I used to make this in a springform pan. They have the sides that clip off, and so you can remove the sides, like for making a cheesecake. I don't have one of those anymore yet. So I am just going to use this pie dish, and I think it will be okay. I've greased it pretty well, and I am just going to line it with baking paper. So I have a piece of baking paper, and I am just going to roughly cut. I mean, you could draw it with a pencil and then cut it out, but I'm just going to roughly cut the shape of the pan around here and line the base of this pan. And the tear off and it'll be fine. So just trim around that extra bit. It does not have to be pretty. This is just to help it a little bit of extra insurance so it doesn't stop sticking. Excuse my chicken sitting out on the bench. I'm defrosting that for tomorrow. Okay, so we've got our little line pan. I've measured out our ingredients. We need 100 grams of walnuts, which I will chop that up finely in the food processor. 200 grams of dark chocolate and 150 grams of sugar. Usually, I always used to use Rapadura sugar. I don't know if you can buy that over here. It's just like it's not as refined and it's a healthier sugar. So maybe it's called something else here. Anyway, let me know. Can you get Rapadura sugar here? I haven't really looked into it because It is more expensive. It's not in the budget right now. So I'm using organic brown sugar, which is what I have, which will work just fine. I have done it with that before. But if you can get a healthier sugar like coconut sugar, rapadura sugar, any of those are good as well. So, and I've measured out coconut. You can use butter as well. I'm using coconut oil, 150 grams of that. And I just need to make some coffee, an espresso shot of coffee, because it's a coffee cake. Okay, I'm going to grind up the walnuts now. So just popping them in the processor. So I don't want to over process them to where that all the oils start to be released out of the nuts and they'll kind of really clump, but I do want it to grind up to sort of like a flour, like that. Then I'm just going to add the chocolate in onto that and grind that up together. Okay, I think that, yeah. So we've got this sort of crumbly consistency. Now, the beauty of the Thermomix, if I had one, is you then put it on the heat function and you melt, and you put the sugar in and you melt it all together for 3 minutes. Obviously, this does not have a heat function, so I'm going to pop it in on the stove, but it's just to bring it together. So you're not really cooking it, you're just kind of melting it all together a little bit. It also calls for rum, just like a teaspoon of rum or rum essence, neither of which I have. It does taste really nice in this, but I don't have any at the moment. Or if you don't want to have that in there, I'm just substituting with vanilla essence. It's the last little bit of the vanilla essence in this jar. So I'm going to put that in instead and add these into the saucepan and turn it on. Full confession, this is me changing it up on the fly, which isn't that unusual. I'm just going to put it in the double boiler because I was remembering how that in the Thermomix it melts really well, but sometimes if you put chocolate like that on a direct heat, it's not good. So I've just putting this over hot water to do it instead is probably going to work better. Now I'm going to keep an eye on that, but while that is heating up, I am going to separate some eggy weggles because we need 5 eggs separated, and then we will whisk up the egg whites and mix the yolks in separately. It is just all melting and coming together. And now we're just going to go ahead and add the egg yolks one at a time, mixing well in between. Take it off the heat. Just going to add 1 egg at a time. Give it a good mix. Oops, that's kind of 2 eggs. Kind of 2 at a time. Okay, so I've set that aside and we just need to put these egg whites in here and whisk them up. Okay, I just remembered I didn't put the coffee in. So I have gone back and mixed in the coffee. And I am the first to admit, I am far, far from a perfect cook. And I often make mistakes and have to go back and fix things that I did. Or I'm like scatterbrained because I'm interrupted by children or dogs or whatever life events are happening. But I guess my encouragement is you don't have to be perfect and you can still cook beautiful food for your family. So I've mixed in the coffee and the egg whites are nice and fluffy. I don't know if you can see this, I'll try and we also added in to the egg whites a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. So that's in there. And then basically we're just going to fold that into the chocolate mixture. The egg whites going into the chocolate mix. And possibly we'll need to transfer it back the other way, because now what we want to do is fold it in gently, because the egg whites help make this fluffy, but we don't want to over mix it, which I'm not going to lie to you, it's kind of tricky. Because you do have to kind of just fold it in. So we have mixed it in, it's kind of a paler color, and I'm not going to mix it any further even though I see a few lumps because I don't want to overdo it. Pour this in here. So I'm going to pop that in the oven. So we have a moderate oven that has been preheating. I'm going to pop that in there for 40 to 50 minutes until it's done in the middle. I toyed with whether or not to show you this. I have put it back in, but I had had it in there like 5 minutes and I was just pottering around the kitchen cleaning up, and I walked over to the bench and like, I didn't put the coconut oil in. What was I thinking? And then I didn't know if it had been in too long and I'd just lost it and had to start again. Anyway, I ended up getting it out, mixing in the coconut oil and putting it back in. So we will see whether or not this is a complete ruination or if it's okay. While that is cooking in the oven, I thought we will cut into this pumpkin, this beautiful pumpkin, and see what it's like. It kind of looks like a Jarrahdale. It's not quite like a Queensland blue, but it does look similar. So anyway, I'm interested to see what it looks like on the inside and to cook it up and see what it tastes like. Okay, I think this is done. And it doesn't seem any worse the wear for me having to pull it out and mix in the coconut oil. It's pulled, there is. So I think that worked okay, despite my kind of thinking I messed it up. But it is normal that this will sink down a little after you pull it out of the oven. So I will let it cool. And then what we might do, you can sprinkle it, dust it with some cocoa or with some powdered sugar, and it's really nice topped with berries. But I probably today, because I'm taking it with me, will just put it on a plate and dust it with cocoa. All right, we'll cut into this one. Wowzers. If we can. There we go. I heard that. There we go. Isn't that lovely looking? Now that does look, it's got the right look about it. Not too much seed, a good amount of flesh. I'm very curious. We shall pop him in the oven and see what it tastes like. Okay, I'm going to try and save these seeds just in case in case we like this pumpkin. I'm gonna cook it in chunks like this so it cooks quicker. Last time I just put the whole half pumpkin in there, but it takes a lot longer and I want this to be a bit quicker, so I've cut it up. So these are the seeds we saved the other day from that really orangey colored pumpkin, and it did taste good. So I want to keep these seeds and I'll use them next. Okay, so this pumpkin I'm cutting up is one of the ones I bought at H-E-B. I don't know, it's an orangey color, but not a bright orange. And we are going to bake it and see how it compares with the last one I baked, which was like a bright orange pumpkin, and it was gross. So we're going to try this one and see if it's close to an Aussie one. Okay, so my first observation about this pumpkin as I'm scraping the seeds out is it seems to be a lot more stringy than an Aussie pumpkin. And there are a lot of seeds, and not a lot of flesh. Like, we're looking at like an inch around there. It's not a very dense pumpkin. It's kind of hollow with a lot of seeds. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Okay, I have saved all these pumpkin seeds, and of course they're all mushy and messy, but I'm going to dehydrate them, like dry them out and clean off all of the stuff, just in case this is a pumpkin that we like and I might want to save the seeds to grow next time. So what I did is I basically I went to H-E-B and I bought a number of different kinds of pumpkins, different colors, different varieties, different sizes, and in a bid to get to know the pumpkins here and decide which ones we like, I'm going to, over the next few months in the fall season and maybe into early winter, be cooking them, tasting them, preparing them, and figure out, okay, we like this one for that, this one for that. Like, what I would really like to find is a good baking pumpkin that does like a bake that you might put, like, so with baked veggies with a roast, which is how we often had it back home. And so far I haven't found that here. I haven't found the ideal pumpkin for that, but I'm sure that even if it's not good for that, some of these we might be able to use for soups or for like pumpkin pie or different things like that. So here are another couple of the pumpkins that I got, different varieties. So these guys I'm using as decoration, these little pumpkins, and another big white one over here. Now this, of course, is a butternut. We would call it a butternut pumpkin. Here they call it a butternut squash. And I am familiar with this one. We had these in Australia. But this one and this one, which these look more like Aussie pumpkins, still a little bit different. This kind of real bubbly look is different, but similar coloring. We'll see. This kind of looks like a fairy tale pumpkin. Got this big twisty turny, and I'll cook him at some stage too. So I have just cut this in half and scooped out the seeds and laid them down flat, and I'm gonna bake them in a moderate oven. I reckon they'll take a while. They're pretty big. This is the now cooked pumpkins. I've turned this one over. They're really looking very stringy, I gotta say. Look at that. Super stringy. Okay, let's do the taste test. I'm a little bit nervous about this because the last orange pumpkin we ate that I tried was so gross. So that's actually a lot better. Yeah, I could see that one working in cooking. It's not, the other one like tasted like dirt. It had no good flavor, no sweetness, and it was really gross. But this one actually, that's pretty sweet, so that's good. The texture maybe not great. Be interesting to see how it would bake and if it would keep its form or if it's just going to go to mush. If I cut it up, like I know I baked this, but if I cut this up into cubes and bake it with some salt and pepper and some good fat of some kind, that would be interesting. But the flavor's actually pretty good. These ones are from this big gray pumpkin, so I'm going to keep them as well. But as you can see, these are still pretty wet, so we'll dry them out. I'm just going to leave these out on the counter until they're fully all dry, and then I'll put them into something, an envelope or something. So I turned it out from here onto a plate, and I've just dusted it through this little sieve with some cocoa and a little bit of powdered sugar. And then that, hopefully served with a few fresh berries, will be yummy. So I've got the pumpkin in, we've got the first cake done, and I'm gonna just quickly do a pumpkin pie. I have tried a few different recipes over the years, and to be honest, pumpkin pie is not something that is familiar to the Australian palate. I'll say that. It is not something we eat in Australia really at all. Pumpkins, when you cook them, where I come from, are savory and not sweet. So pumpkin pie was very foreign to me. And of course, I was introduced to it a long time ago now, but we have been married, my husband and I, 20 years. So 20 years I've been married into an American family with exposure to American foods and cultures. And it is only in the last 2 years, maybe, that I have started eating pumpkin pie. I couldn't do it. Like, I would try it and I would just like, oh no, this is so wrong. This is sweet, and pumpkin's not supposed to be sweet. And I just couldn't get my palate and my brain to accept it. But I have, in the last few years, tried a number of different homemade recipes, and they have been what has kind of changed my mind about pumpkin pie. So my top 3 recipes, Jess from Roots and Refuge has a recipe. I don't think she's done it on her new channel, but it is on her, I think I found it on her blog. It's yummy. Jill Winger's recipe is good. I've done that one as well. That's yummy. But the one I'm doing today is my new, I guess, go-to one that I just tried this year, and it is from Farmhouse on Boone. What I like about the other 2 recipes is they use honey and maple syrup to sweeten. This one does use brown sugar, and most of my family still cannot do pumpkin pie, but my mother and father-in-law, who of course love pumpkin pie, have said this is their favorite recipe. So I am going to make that today for our church lunch tomorrow. I have a 1.25 cups of, I'm just using baker's flour, but all-purpose flour. Plain flour is all you need. And I'm going to cut into this a 1/2 cup of cold butter. Now you can put it on a chopping board and cut it up in nice little cubes, but I'm always doing things on the fly, so this is my version of cubing. But it seems to work just fine. My cubes are all different sizes. It just helps you to be able to break the butter up. And then I will rub this into the flour with a little half teaspoon of salt, good salt, and get it all crumbled in. So really just wanting to use the tips of my fingers so that the warmth of my hands doesn't start to melt the butter. So as much as possible, just using the tips and kind of just rubbing the butter through so that the flour crumbles into the flour. You can see that's just kind of nice and crumbly now with all the butter mixed in. And I'm just going to, I've got icy cold water here, and I'm going to mix in enough for it to come to form a rough dough. So I've just kind of flattened that out into a bit of a disc. I'm going to wrap it in some plastic that I saved from another time and pop it in the fridge. Recipe says to put it in the fridge for an hour, but I did 30 minutes last time and that was fine. I am just going to put all of the ingredients for the filling into this little bowl, whisk it up, and hopefully by shortly it will have been in the fridge long enough and I'll roll it out and do the rest. It's really simple. We just have 3 eggs, 2 cups of the pumpkin puree, 1 cup of cream, the vanilla extract, brown sugar, salt, cinnamon, and pumpkin pie spice. So I'm going to pop that all in here and mix it up. Cream, which I managed to spill. 2 cups. This is the orange pumpkin I cooked the other day. I made the mistake the other day of not exactly measuring it, and then I had a bit too much filling for my pie crust. So it doesn't have to be super exact, but you don't want it overflowing. So like I was saying, I've tried a few different pumpkin pie recipes, and this one, the reason I like it is super easy and straightforward. Like you just chuck all the filling in, you make the crust and it's done. Like it's really not fussy. And I love that in a pie. I love that in any recipe because I'm busy. But the other ones that I really did enjoy, I really do like to try and find recipes that do not use processed sugars. So maple syrup or honey to sweeten is great. This one, I am using organic brown sugar. If I had it, I think a really good substitute would be Rapadura sugar or coconut sugar. They would probably be really good in here and you wouldn't notice a flavor change with that. But one of the things that I find that I really don't like about the store-bought ones, I mean, number one, they have like 100 ingredients and half the ingredients you can't even recognize. But they are really, one of the first ingredients is high fructose corn syrup, which is just so toxic. It's so bad for you and it's in so many foods here. So to be able to find a recipe that, okay, yes, it's got sugar, so it's not great, but pies are not something we eat every day. This is a treat. It's a dessert. It's kind of like a celebration food in the holiday season. So I'm happy to have it every once in a while in that scenario, and to be able to find something that we can eat that is using whole foods and not high fructose corn syrup is definitely a win. Okay, I have made a decision to make a second espresso cake. And I'm just fixing up a couple of things that last time I messed up the order. I wasn't reading the instructions properly. Anyway, so I've grated the chocolate, and I'm so used to doing this in the Thermomix. Like, I've been making this cake for years, but in the Thermomix, you just do it all in the same machine without all this chopping and changing, which it works fine. I just have to remember the different steps I have to do now. So I'm grating the chocolate, putting it in here, and what I should have done last time is add the coconut oil at this point when I'm melting it in, and then the vanilla essence, and then add the other things after that. So anyway, just so that you know, this is what I'm going back and doing it again the right way. And lo and behold, when you do it properly, it works. So this with the oil in looks much better. That's what it's supposed to look like. Silly me. Okay, I just wanted to show you this because this is how it should have been. So this is much more glossy and smooth. I've got my whites. So second time round, we're gonna fold this in and see how it goes. Actually, I'm going to need to do this the opposite way, I can tell already. This needs to go into this one. Well, it's not going to be big enough. Whoops. Try off the bottom of that. Okay, so see how much runnier this is, how much more smooth with all that coconut oil in there. It's going to be so much easier to fold in. Silly me. But you know, I don't know, maybe you guys are all perfect cooks, but hopefully this will encourage someone out there who makes mistakes. You can still make it good. And now I'm going to fold that through, and that is so much easier. Okay, so that's all mixed in and it looks so much better. I mean, having said that, like, I think this is going to be a bit more uniform and the batter is smoother, but I was able to kind of make good with that one anyway. All right, we'll pour this one into the pie dish. Just reusing the same pie dish, although I did re-grease it, and I reused the same parchment paper. That looks better. Anyway. Alrighty, so there we go.
That looks much better. I have to say, I was thinking to myself, this does not look like I remember this batter looking.
It just did not. The last one, I was like, I don't remember it looking like this. Yes. Anyway, we shall pop this one in the oven. Okay, so I've got this pastry out and I'm just going to roll it out. In a second. If you find it sticking, you can roll it between 2 pieces of baking paper or parchment paper, but you may not need to. Just see how it is. So all we're really wanting is to get it big enough to go over the edge of this pie dish, which I think it is. Take it over. You don't even have to use the baking paper. I just find it's a little bit of a help getting it up off the bench, stopping it from sticking. And I'm going to pop that down in there. Okay. Trim off the edges. And a bit of a pinch. Okay. Sometimes I just mark the edges with a fork, because you don't have to do that. Sometimes just the finger print and the finger pinch looks nice. Anyway, whatever you want to do on your edges. Hello, small one. Are you after a little bit of the dough?
Mama.
Do you want some? Oh, you have got something in your eye. Did you colour yourself in? Yes, you can have some dough. There's a little bit left.
Oh, yes. I want all this. It's a pie.
It is a pie.
Mom, can I thought it was a cake.
Oh, it's a pie.
Can I have this?
Yeah, you can see if the boys want some.
The only reason I thought it was a cake is because it's
Oh, the other one we made today was a cake. Just gonna pour this in.
I'm eating it.
Remember the chocolate one, the
Oh, is this
espresso
a pumpkin one?
Yes, this is a pumpkin pie.
I hate this.
I know, it's not your favorite, is it? Nini and Papa love it. And we're making it for
Yeah.
church tomorrow.
Oh, I thought it was for TK's birthday.
Oh no, that's the cake. Okay, so we're gonna pop that in the oven, same time as the cake, but this one takes an hour. The cake only takes 40 minutes, I think. It's already been in there 10. So I'm just gonna pop this in. It's a 350-degree oven or 180 Celsius. Okay, while I'm waiting for the pies to cook, I thought I might cut into this one. This is the one that I messed up, and see if it's actually any good.
And if it is, we will take it to one of the events today or tomorrow that we're going to. And if it's not, we'll just make do and eat it here. Yeah, it feels pretty good to cut through with the knife. I would usually cut this into wedges, so I will just go ahead and do that, and we'll have a look at one. Oh, that actually looks just fine. Looks like it's cooked all the way through the center. I think we'll be able to use that. So, even though I did it all back to front, it turned out okay. So you just never know. Things aren't always as bad as you think they are. So I'll keep cutting that up, and I'll cover this up and we can take it tomorrow. It is a beautiful espresso, flourless, gluten-free cake that has been my favorite for years. It is really yummy with whipped cream and berries, but it's actually delicious on its own with a cup of coffee or hot tea. So yummy. It's moist and delicious. Yeah, I've just pulled that pumpkin out of the oven. So we will try that and see. Okay, I have just tasted this, and I have to tell you, this is the closest thing I've tasted yet to an Aussie pumpkin. It's sweet. I can see that it would, I could actually bake it up and get it crunchy, I think. That's a bit exciting. So I will definitely be saving these seeds. And I just had a look back to see what this pumpkin was called, because I took photos. They had little stickers on them when I bought them. And this one was called a Blue Delight, which I don't know if that's the actual name or if that was just like a marketing thing. So if anyone knows this pumpkin, this sort of grayish, but it's good. I'm gonna save the seeds anyway, whatever it is, and we'll try and grow some of those next year. Okay, here's our pie.
Thank you for joining me today on my baking adventures. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Wishing each of you sunshine and raindrops.